a major development in the heist at the most visited museum in the world, the Louvre, as officials have arrested 2 suspects in connection with the theft of the crown jewels. They announced this over the weekend, this coming a week after a heist that stunned the world and sparked a massive manhunt. For more on this, let's go out to Greg Paulcott with this report.
It was a heist that stunned the world and sparked a massive manhunt. Now 2 men are in custody, suspected of taking part in the Louvre Museum robbery last week.
A week later, it does feel a bit late. We wonder how this could even happen, but it was important that the guys were caught.
Paris prosecutors say the arrests were made on Saturday night, while one of the men was preparing to board a flight from Paris to Algeria. The suspects were reportedly identified through DNA tracing, and now the focus turns to getting back the stolen jewels before they're destroyed.
I think the main thing now is whether they can recover the jewels. That's what really matters.
We're also learning more about the heist itself. The guard who recovered a priceless crown left behind says the theft could have been much worse, but the thieves were surprised at the quick response by Louvre security.
I'm certain that it was the thieves' panic at seeing our colleagues arrive that made them lose their composure.
Meanwhile, Louvre officials are reporting long lines full of tourists who want to see the area where the heist took place. The room itself is still closed as the investigation continues, but tour guides say that's not stopping people from trying to get a glimpse.
It'd be nice to find a few diamonds that they may have missed or dropped on the way out.
We also got kind of inspired, so we plan our heist for the next year.
Police say they've confirmed a total of 4 people took place in the robbery. Now they're analyzing DNA samples, hoping to find the other 2 suspects. In Paris, Greg Palcott, Fox News.
All right, thank you so much for that, Greg. And several suspects potentially still out there as they have not confirmed if the jewels, if that crown is back in possession of the museum. And you can see there from the New York Post, the 2 men arrested, over $100 million in this heist as one suspect busted at the airport trying to flee the country, heading to Algeria. Let's be joined right now here on Live Now from Fox, former FBI special agent with the art crime team that responded to art theft, forgery, fraud worldwide, Dave Bass. Dave, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. They do have 2 individuals in custody. What comes next in terms of this investigation?
Well, certainly the thing that the French authorities are going to be focusing most on is the actual recovery of the jewelry. So you have to think that there's some worried thieves out there right now, the remaining suspects. This was a tremendous break in the case. Great detective and police work by the French authorities. And ultimately, this arrest, this development, certainly increases the chances that the crown jewels are going to be retrieved in whole.
And just something that you said, are they looking for individuals? Are they looking more so for the jewels, or are they looking for a combination of the both?
They're going to do both, of course, right? But these types of crimes, unlike more traditional crimes, you know, the thing that they've got to keep in mind is the recovery of those crown jewels, right? That's priceless cultural heritage. So that, I would say, is first and foremost in their mind. But having these 2 suspects in custody now, you know, of course, we don't have access to the details of the investigation, but we can hope that they are cooperating to some degree. And certainly the French authorities are going to be looking at these 2 individuals, determining who they were connected with, you know, those types of things, and following up on evidence that may lead to the other suspects.
And of course, we talk about this as the thieves took less than 8 minutes last Sunday. You see some of those images as they kind of broke in through a window, a ladder, a lift to get up to the 2nd floor there. And people think of movies like Ocean 11s, but does this signify a sophisticated group of thieves in any way with what we're seeing presented so far?
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, they had a good plan, and it was a brazen robbery to do it in the middle of the day, shortly after the museum opened at 9:30 in the morning. You know, this was probably a pretty well-rehearsed crew. They made some crucial mistakes, though, and that certainly helped authorities with the evidence that they left behind.
And I believe in another interview you did, you talked about a potential ransom. If the other suspects do have the crown jewel or other priceless entities, like you mentioned, priceless cultural artifacts that have, will potentially the other suspects reach out to authorities themselves? Is that a possibility?
We certainly hope so, right? that would be the optimal outcome. Would be that there would be some communication happening, and that there would be some ongoing negotiations to return the property, which is what we're all mostly concerned about, right? And then, of course, we want to. Hopefully, French authorities are going to be able to hold all of the individuals involved, the four in the crew, and if there were any other supporting suspects, that hold them all accountable for this crime.
Yeah, and they said they're combing through DNA evidence, and this is the most visited museum in the world. And of course, it is not reopened. They're saying they're combing through some 150 samples at the scene, but with just the magnitude of people that come and go through the Louvre doors, how much of a challenge is this, and how do they kind of narrow down their field with all this DNA?
Yeah, that's always a challenge in a case like this, where you have a highly public area. There's some 30,000 people a day go through the Louvre Museum, and I think that the fact that the French authorities are going this route, they've been successful at it, I think is a testament to their dedication and the amount of resources that they've thrown at this case. And going through that much DNA evidence is a lot of work, requiring a lot of resources, and certainly French authorities are dedicating those resources and getting the job done. And hopefully, it's going to lead to more identifications. But I think that they're also just having the two known suspects in custody now, the two that were arrested. That stands a good chance of leading to the others, right? Because who they were in contact before the robbery, who they were communicating with after the robbery. So I think French authorities are in a good place right now with a lot of potential leads.
And we don't know if the suspects that were arrested had any of these jewels, but as a person that worked with the FBI and this person's special agent, this art crime team looking into this, is there concern potentially about forgery in terms of this? And how do they kind of verify that the pieces were taken are the ones they hopefully get back?
Yeah, that's always a concern in cases like this, right? But fortunately, these things are so well documented, and there's a very clear pictures of these things and descriptions of them, that it will obviously be no problem to properly identify them should they be returned. I don't think that that's going to be as much of a concern as whether or not they're going to be damaged, right? Because these are old artifacts and they're easily damaged.
Is that something that art thieves typically do, just to separate it, to melt it down? Everybody kind of says about that, because you imagine they're going to be very difficult to sell in their entirety. Is that something that you might see of an art thief?
Absolutely, in a lot of cases, right? In this case, a lot of the stones that are used in these objects are older stones, they're older cuts, and so they're easily recognizable, right? Because of their unique cuts. And so what a lot of thieves will do is try to recut these stones or have them recut. There are a couple places in the world that do this kind of work. It's not impossible to do, or it's not very difficult to do, but they'll try to hide the identity of these stones. I'm hopeful and optimistic that they're going to keep it intact. I mean, it seems like they were specifically going after these objects, and I'm hopeful that it was some type of ransom reward scenario.
And they obviously dropped one on the way out of the building in such a hurry as authorities were on there. I do want to ask you, have you ever been to this specific room in the Louvre? And they called it a terrible failure. What more can the Louvre do to prevent something like this from happening again? Because there is more notoriety, more national, worldwide attention, people clamoring to just get into the Louvre right now, and obviously potentially more copycats out there. What can be prevented? What are they looking into?
I have been to that exact gallery on a couple of occasions in the past. A beautiful, beautiful place. And I think ultimately, all museums are constantly weigh the equation of, do we have enough security versus are we accessible to the public? The Louvre is no exception. The Louvre, being an older building, wasn't designed to be a modern museum with all the latest security protocols and implementations. So the Louvre is in a unique challenge, and I do know that the Louvre takes security very seriously. It's one of the most professional museums in the world, certainly an icon amongst museums. And I think in this case, there was obviously a security failure, but I think that the museum's going to quickly identify any gaps. They're going to rectify it. And I think the larger overall message going out to all museums and cultural property institutions around the world is that, you have to look at the security. You have to take the time, make sure you've got the adequate measures in place to protect against crimes like this. But ultimately, I think we all need to realize that no institution that's open to the public is going to be able to completely safeguard 100% of the time. Otherwise, it would be a bank, right? Everything would be locked away in a vault. So it's a challenge, and it's not unique to just the Louvre.
Yeah, and there's obviously security challenges there. The Mona Lisa, I believe, kind of in the same wing, but that has security obviously very significant, heightened in that way. Dave, my last question before I let you go. What other questions do you have? What do you hope comes next in terms of this investigation? What do you hope to learn?
Well, I'm waiting to hear what exactly the French prosecutor is going to announce at the next press conference. I'd like to know where they're at with the identification of the other suspects. Are they a lot further along than we think? And obviously, my most important question is do they know at this point, through talking with the arrested suspects, are the jewels still in the country, and are they intact? Because my first and foremost concern is for that property because of its priceless nature.
That's a very good, obviously, great background perspective from you, Dave. Thank you so much. Obviously, far from over this story is, and we'll see if it goes beyond France, worldwide, obviously, potentially complications there. Thank you again. I appreciate your time here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me.